In this section, we're talking about quadratic equations. Those are equations in which you have an x squared. Now this first one, I'm just asking you to solve it, and so the easiest way to solve this one is by factoring. Now there's two different ways that I've taught factoring. One way is just trial and error. So if you work at the trial and error way, my choices for 15 are 5 and 3 or 15 and 1. And my choices for 8 are 4 and 2 and 8 and 1. And I'm looking for the group that adds to give me 26. So if I'm using trial and error, I will pick 5x and 3x. And who knows what I'll pick on the back. Let's say that I tried 2 and 4. Now I don't know if it works or not, so we have to do trial and error and see. And basically those are these rainbows. Here's my outside rainbow. That would give me a 20x. And here's my inside rainbow. That would give me a 6x. And my question is, will those add to give me 26? They will. They'll add to give you 26 if they are the same sign, both positive. Now that's how trial and error works. Now I got it to that point, I put the numbers in there and I tried them and made sure it worked. If they didn't work, all you would need to do is switch the numbers and then try it again. Now it did tell me to solve, so once I get it factored, I'll set both pieces equal to 0. Now take your time on this step. I believe that on your final, they really trick you with this part. So double check it and go slowly. I'm going to move the 2 over first. So 5x would equal a negative 2. To solve it from here, I need x by itself, so I'm going to divide by 5. So x would equal a negative 2/5. Now I spoke to you about being careful. On the final, I think there's one like this that the answer possibility is 5 over 2. So they reverse those and they really try to trick you. So take your time on this part and be careful. To solve the other piece, I'll subtract 4 from both sides. And 3x equals negative 4. I'll divide both sides by 3. And x would equal a negative 4/3. So in my answer choices, I'm looking for a negative 2/5 and a negative 4/3. Be super careful. If you notice your first 3 possibilities, they're all 2/5, 4/3, 2/5, 4/3, 2/5, 4/3. So the sign is going to be a really big deal. I notice that both of these are negative, so I have to make sure I pick the one where both signs are negative, and that would be here. Okay, I worked that one by trial and error. There's another method called bottoms up. If you need some help on bottoms up or the bottoms up method with this problem, just send me a quick message and I'll be glad to do a video for you on the bottoms up method. Okay, here's our next one. This one is really easy to do by something called the square root property. With the square root property, what you have to remember is to take the square root of both sides and put a plus or minus on the number side. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides, but you have to remember on this side over here, put a plus or minus. Okay, so we're going to get x plus 5 here equals plus or minus 4. X plus 5 would equal 4, and x plus 5 would equal negative 4. Break it into 2 equations. So I'll move the 5 over here, and x would equal negative 1. And I would move the 5 over here, and x would equal negative 9. So my values are negative 1 and negative 9. Be careful, there are lots of very similar possibilities. I want negative 9 and negative 1. Okay, you'll notice that this problem just says solve the equation, but if you look at your answer choices, you'll see that the way you solve this one is with the quadratic formula. Okay, so in this particular problem, A is 5, B is 12, and C is 6. So x would equal the negative of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Twelve squared is 144. 5 times 4 times 6 would be 120. $144 minus 120 would be 24. Now let's go to the side for a second. You have the square root of 24. To simplify that, you know that 4 is a perfect square, and 4 goes into it 6 times. So the square root of 4 would be 2 on the outside, and the square root of 6 is left underneath. So simplifying this, you would get 12 plus or minus 2 square roots of 6 all over 10. Now then, the square root of 6 is protected. You can't do anything with it. But out in front of that, you have a 2. You also have a 12 and a 10. So you need to simplify this because they're all even. Now there's several different ways that you can simplify it. You can break it into 2 fractions, you can factor out, but truly the easiest way, if you look at all 3 of these pieces that I've shaded in red, all 3 of them are divisible by 2. So divide all of those pieces by 2. 6, 1, and 5. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So that would give you 6 plus or minus 1 square roots of 6 all over 5. Now let's see what our answer choices would be. Okay, this first one is all over 10, so that doesn't work. The next 2 are all over 5. This one has a 12, so that doesn't work. The only difference between B and C there is the middle part, so the radical part. So your answer is negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 over 5, and that's how it would look.